Evening, everybody, and welcome to the Road to Glendale, a special Eagles pregame show as the Birds start their journey to hopefully another championship. They did it before this year, looking good, maybe to do it again. I'm Mike Missinelli with Derek Gunn and Mark Farzetta tonight as we present some facts and figures and some opinions on what possibly could happen in this game as the Eagles take on the New York Giants Saturday night, 8:15. Now, the last time we talked to you was the Eagles' last victory, and we wondered who they were going to play. And the consensus was they were probably going to play the Dallas Cowboys. But I think really they got the best road possible when the Giants upset the Minnesota Vikings. And I know people said, don't sleep on the Giants. I get it. But here's the thing. The Giants are a 7.5-point underdog in this game. I can't imagine that they're going to play a good enough game that they played against Minnesota last week and come into Philly and play that same kind of game with a chance to upset the Eagles. So that's where I stand right now. Let's get some opinions right out of the chute from our guys. First of all, D. Gunn, when you found out it was the Giants, what was your first reaction?
Well, round 3 coming up. I wasn't surprised in a lot of ways they beat Minnesota. Minnesota has been basically, and I don't like to use the word fraud, but they have been somewhat of a fraud all season. You know, they won 12 games by one score, and they won 6 or 7 games in come-from-behind fashion, and one of those wins was on a fluke fumble by Josh Allen at the goal line, which you never see happen. They have been riding on borrowed time for a long time. Now, the Giants went in there on Christmas Eve and lost that game on a last-second 61-yard field goal, so I'm sure they felt pretty good about going back in there and battling that team tooth and nails, and I picked the Giants to upset the Vikings. It is the best case scenario for the Eagles in terms of who their opponent could be. The Giants don't have close to the talent the Philadelphia Eagles have on both sides of the football. But what they do have is extremely good coaching. You know, Brian Daboll is a serious candidate for Coach of the Year. Wink Martindale has done exactly with a limited group of Giant players as he did in Baltimore for many years. This is a scrappy team. This is a team that's playing with house money. And also, Mike, it's the kind of team I look at when you go back in recent history. There was a 6-seeded team from Pittsburgh that had Jerome Bettis playing in its last year. They ran the table on the road and shocked the world and won the Super Bowl in Bettis' hometown of Detroit. Then you go forward a few more years later, there was a Green Bay team that backed into the playoffs, knocked off the top 3 seeds on the road in the playoffs, and then beat Pittsburgh in the Super Bowl. I'm not saying the Giants are capable of doing that, but they believe they can compete. Now, when you match man for man, I don't think there's any way, shape, or form. They walk out of Lincoln Financial Field Sunday night with a W. But as we've seen throughout the course of this season, from week 1 all the way through the playoffs, every week has been 1, 2, or 3 of those games that make you come away going, what just happened? You know, and hopefully
let me ask you your initial reaction. Do you believe that the Eagles got the better road here?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, but here's the thing. As far as the better road, yeah, the way this is playing out has been great for the Eagles. However, the only concern I do have with the Giants, and of all the teams, I thought the Eagles would beat any team that they were going to face in the divisional round, whether that had been the Cowboys or whoever, the Seahawks. The team I didn't want to see was the Giants for a lot of the reasons that Gunnar just pointed out. But really, it comes down to the idea of people bringing up that constant can't beat a team 3 times. It's tough to beat a team 3 times, whatever you want to call it. This is a brand new ball game. Now, whether you want to look at 48-22, like when the Eagles faced them the first time this season, or you want to look at how the season ended against these Giants, they haven't played the same team, neither side. The Eagles haven't played the Giants when they were at their best. Saquon Barkley was coming off an injury in that game, only touched the ball 3 times in their first meeting in that second half. They didn't have Adoree Jackson in that game that the Eagles were able to put up 48 points in, and they also didn't have their next best corner in Xavier McKinley. So they were banged up as well. I still believe the Eagles are going to win this game. I'm not positive right now that they cover the game, but I think the Eagles, there'll be a backdoor cover here by the Giants, but the Eagles will win this football game.
This is really interesting because I think the Giants are obviously a better team right now. They showed that last week. They played very well, especially offensively, and we saw some things from the quarterback who listen, he had a brilliant game. And one of the weaknesses of the Philadelphia Eagles is their weakness against the rush, and their weakness stopping quarterbacks who are mobile, who get out of the pocket. I get all that, but here's the thing I want to run by you guys. I mean, this team, and you mentioned the talent level, D-Gun, they're not on the same plane as the Eagles. And I think that even when you get on a roll, and everybody's thinking the Giants on a roll, and they're going to really shock the Eagles, when talent eventually has to show up. Like, you can't play perfect games like they played against the Vikings with a lack of talent. You can do it maybe once. Emotionally, you get on a roll. You get confidence against that team. You think you can beat that team, but I don't know if when you stretch that out, the lack of talent can show up in a couple of consecutive weeks on the road, and especially in Philly.
Yeah, you're right. And the good thing is the Eagles had that extra week off to heal up some bodies. Lane Johnson is coming back. Even if he's only 85%, he's still better than any other option on the right side of that offensive line. They finally got C.J. Gardner-Johnson back. So they're outside of Avonte Maddox, they're relatively healthy. And when you think about it, every team has had to deal with multitudes of injuries. And a lot of teams are going into the playoffs injured. This Eagles team outside of Maddox is a healthy football team. Now, the good thing is, as I said, they had that extra week off. Hopefully, that extra week doesn't mean there's some rust involved here. You know, the Giants coming off on a short week, won a hard-fought road game. They've got a short week to lick their wounds, turn it around, and get healthy on a day shorter's notice to battle the number one seed in the NFC and the team many people consider the best overall team in the National Football League. That's a tough mountain to climb for a road team to come in here and do that. And so that's why I feel with this Eagles team and Jalen Hurts, most importantly, Jalen Hurts is not on any injury report this week. He's been throwing the ball. I'm interested in seeing how many design run plays they will call for him. Now, they say he's healthy. But again, when you're talking about a shoulder, you never know. I want to see how many RPOs he runs, how many design run plays he's going to run in this game, and if it does affect their overall offense. But, when you look at this matchup, Mike, the Eagles can come out sluggish and pick up steam and overcome this team. You might not be able to say that about a few other teams, but, that's the best thing about this matchup. The Giants are not a potent offensive team. They don't score a lot of points. This Eagles team, if they had to do so, can play catch-up real easy against this type of team.
Farsley, let's talk about this because the Eagles are kind of a mystery right now. I mean, let's face it. When they were rolling along, we didn't really have any doubts. The last three games, some doubt has crept in because they had to play two with Minshew, and of course the last one didn't count against the Giants JV. So what we saw is a hurting quarterback and a difference in how they call plays. What we saw is no right tackle, and that guy's coming back. We don't really have any idea how Lane Johnson's going to be. And Darius Slay, for some reason, is in a slump. So all those things that we counted on to make the Eagles the best team in the NFC early in the season, they're kind of a mystery right now. So I guess we can't say that we know what we're going to get when they come out of the chute. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I am still confident in this team, Mike. And when I look at Jalen Hurts, I think one thing we can take away from the Giants game is he might not have been healthy in that game. He might not have been anything close to 100%, and he was very much in pain after that game, as Nick Sirianni said. But look at how he progressed as that game went on. So to think about what type of quarterback you're going to get in this game, I think you are going to get the version of Jalen Hurts that is that MVP candidate that we watched through the vast majority of the season. Though true, like you pointed out, the way the season ended, you don't feel great beating the JV Giants. You don't feel great losing to the Saints, granted with Gardner Minshew. And you don't feel great losing to the Cowboys when your defense, that was supposed to be one of the best in the NFL statistically all season long, absolutely allowed a 40-burger in that game. So you don't feel great about the way the season ended. The best thing the Eagles could do in this game, come out, start out hot. Gunner, you mentioned the fact that they could do that when you have a connection like A.J. Brown from Jalen Hurts. You can start out hot in a lot of these games. And let's not forget, it's a Giants game here against the Eagles. So as far as I'm concerned, the Giants are already down 7-0 on a Boston Scott touchdown run. So when you think about all that stuff, I think the Eagles will get back on track. And look, when Micah Parsons said what he said the week leading up to that Cowboys game, well, really leading up to the Bears game for the Eagles, what he said, we all shot down because, no, it's not a system. The Eagles have a great system. The on switch to that machine is Jalen Hurts. So the fact that he wasn't healthy and he didn't see him for 2 of the last 3 weeks kind of lets you know how much of a flip switch he is for this great system.
All right. So you brought up Boston Scott, and Wink Martindale into his presser today kind of sniffed at the notion that Boston Scott is a giant killer. In fact, he directly said, I don't think he's a giant killer. He's a good guy. And he didn't want to give any credit at all. Now, let's talk about what his plan may be. He's a very well-respected defensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. The Giants that we saw earlier were a blitz-happy team. They blitzed more than any team in the NFL. They did it against the Eagles, even though the Eagles rung up 48 on them. So, but against Minnesota, they flipped the script a little bit. They did not blitz, and they dropped coverage. So, what do you think the game plan, Derek, will be for Wink Martindale for this Eagles team?
You know what, Mike? It's funny, because I've been asked that question a lot this week. You're talking about a Giants defense that blitzed over 42% of the time during the regular season, and I've talked about this on a number of platforms. I was shocked at how little they blitzed against Minnesota's offense.
I think it was like 13%.
Yeah, it was under 15%.
Yeah.
Their motive was to take Justin Jefferson out of the game, which they did, and could control the running game. They held a pretty good Vikings running attack to 61 yards, and they basically held Justin Jefferson to ineffective for most of the game, and that was a definitive reason why they were able to come out with that win. When I look at a Wink Martindale, you don't know what to expect. And Mike, I equated, we keep talking about player for player, matchup for matchup, who has the advantage, so on and so forth. I think one of the most intriguing aspects of this matchup is the coaching. Sirianni, Steichen, and Gannon versus Daboll, Matt Kafka, and Wink Martindale. And I think those are the people that are going to be moving all the chess pieces. I wish I could sit here and tell you, and I've talked to a couple of friends who cover the Giants in New York. They don't even know what to expect from Wink Martindale this week compared to what he did in Minnesota. So I sure can't tell you, but I'm sure, as Lane Johnson has told us time and time again on our postgame shows before he got injured, over the latter part of Lane Johnson being on our show, Mike, what did he tell us every week? This defense showed us something we didn't see on film. And so I expect Wink Martindale to show them something they have not seen on film up to this point.
Parsley, let's look at what you think the Giants may do here, because the Eagles have a situation at quarterback where you have to worry about Jalen Hurts, but I wonder if the Giants are thinking, well, listen, he's not going to carry that ball in those RPOs, those zone reads. So let's just play it one way, and we'll take our chances that he's not going to carry the football.
Yeah, I think it's obvious what Wink Martindale is going to do, at least at the start of this game. He is going to test the hell out of Lane Johnson to see how close to 100% he is. He's going to send blitz. He is going to be blitzing in this game, and he's going to try to test Lane Johnson to see if he can get around him, see if he is even 70% in this game with that abdominal injury that he does have, that groin injury that he does have. So that's, I think, the first thing. And then just to dispel this, it's not an opinion that Boston Scott is a giant killer. It is a statement of fact. When you have 9 touchdowns in 7 games against an opponent, yes, Wink Martindale, I understand, as you said in your press conference, it wasn't on your watch. However, it happened. You're now coaching for the Giants. I know he won a Super Bowl and he was the Ravens as a linebackers coach, whatever he was on the staff then, but this is a whole new ball game now. So when it comes to what he's going to do, first thing he's going to do is try to stop Lane Johnson, or try to test Lane Johnson. He is going to try to see what Jalen Hurts has as far as his health goes, to see if his arm is 100%, to see if he will be mobile when they do attack Lane. How does Jalen Hurts react to that? Can they move him off his spot? It's all going to be about, I think, pressure in the early goings of this game. And then they're going to try to use guys like Jackson and guys like McKinley, who's going to be back in this game, of course. And they're going to see how they can test that secondary as well.
He might not have gone down the Boston Scott road, because he witnessed Miles Sanders and Jalen Hurts burying him for over 200 yards. Boston Scott's probably an afterthought, though. He's got nothing to worry about with Hurts and Sanders at that point, doesn't he?
And didn't Boston Scott score on his defense?
Yes, that happened.
Okay,
That was
so
his night. Yeah,
he's a part of the Boston Scott nightmare as well,
he's got
whether
him in
he
his
wants
book.
to admit it or not. Yeah, exactly.
All right, so quickly, we're gonna get back to this. I want to talk about Daniel Jones. So, coming into the season, most people thought the Giants would try to just part ways with him, and he had to do something really special to hang on to this whole thing, and he did. And he's really grown as a player. Like last week, throwing for 301 and running for 78 more. That's a legitimate quarterback threat. Now,
Right.
but to me, they don't have enough. You can beat a bad defensive team like Minnesota like that.
Right.
But I don't know that you can beat a really sound defensive team like the Eagles like that.
Not with the depth and the rotation they have in their front seven. No, I don't think so. They're going to try to do two things. They're going to try to establish the run with Saquon Barkley, and they're going to call design running plays for Daniel Jones. And that's how they've had such a good measure of success, because if they get their running game going, it opens up their passing game for their marginal receivers. And Darius Slayton, okay, decent receiver. All of a sudden, the last few weeks, Kenny Golladay has come to life. Kenny Golladay is I refer to as the modern day Jesse James. He's been stealing money for 2 years from the New York Giants. Okay, and they have the one kid they do have to keep an eye on, which is an incredible story, is this wide receiver named Isaiah Hodgins. Here's a kid that Buffalo gave up on twice. The Giants grab him off the scrap heap in the middle part of this season, and even Giants players were saying, "Hey." When he walked in the locker room, like, who is this dude? I've never heard of him. But if you listen to his story, he talks about how he learned his lesson well from the likes of Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Cole Beasley, in terms of whenever you step on a football field, you have to approach it as if you are the best receiver on the field. And lo and behold, his numbers keep going up. He now has 5 touchdown catches in his last 6 games. Is he a world beater? No. Can Darius Slay and James Bradbury handle him? Hope so. Should be able to, but it's an intriguing story to watch. The Giants are one of these true grit type teams. They're down and dirty. They don't do anything flat. They're not flashy like Kansas City, Buffalo, Eagles. They just do dirty stuff to get to where they have to go. Can that method work against the Eagles? I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm not feeling it. And I'm going to tell you, I'm trying to be a homer here. I just don't see where this is going to be a matchup. But we'll continue with this. But we got to take a break. And on the other side, one of the great sponsors of this show, On the Road to Glendale, Joe Messa is going to join us. Now, who's Joe Messa? Well, he's an attorney, and he's a great sponsor of the show. But he also has this monster tailgate. He's a 30-year season ticket holder, and he has this legendary tailgate. Now, I can imagine how he's going to amp it up for this particular game, a night game, and when he starts that. Because we're going to hear from Joe right after this. It is the Road to Glendale. I'm Mike Missinelli with Mark Farzetta and Derek Gunn.